To understand the Keystone Center, you really have to understand Bob Craig.
You know, Bob Craig has seen it all and done it all.
He was at the right time in the right place in so many moments in his life.
I mean, he owned a ranch in Aspen.
He taught the 10th Mountain Division how to ski.
He traveled to the South Pole.
You know, he's the founding executive director of the Aspen Institute.
He was on the first ship into Nagasaki after the bombing of the city.
I'm one of Bob's closest friends, and I think there's only a couple 100,000 more of me.
As a mountaineer, Bob Craig's an iconic figure.
He has climbed mountains like Everest and K2 and the High Palmiers.
And when you realize how close to death he came, you know, he's a man of all seasons.
Great intellectual thinker, a Renaissance man.
He was on the forefront of how science is used in the equation of policy development.
He's been one of the giants, the true giants of the 20th century.
There aren't very many people that have that kind of catalytic power that Bob Craig does.
Because of all of the amazing things he has seen and done in his remarkable life, Bob Craig is the only one who could have founded the Keystone Center.
I've always felt that there's been too much of an emphasis on conquest and so on, of overpowering nature. I'm not one of that school. I've mostly considered myself a privileged trespasser in the mountains. You know, we're here and we do these things, but in that process, there is a certain nobility in a lot of things that human beings do that is separate from the conquest side. It's partly the teamwork, it's partly the friendship, it's partly human determination to achieve something.
One of the things that you look at in public policy is how over-litigious America is. Bob has said there's got to be better ways than each side hiring 20 lawyers.
Bob was really looking for a different path forward because he saw the constant battles folks were engaged in D.C.
We started in Keystone because it was a place where you could get away from the hubbub of the cities.
There's no question that when you're at Keystone, you get a sense of perspective. And you have that enormous 360 view. It gives you a sense that there's greater forces at play than just the human lifespan. And in that way, that inspiration that I think brings people to the table.
His vision was to bring people up to the mountains and have them take off their ties and have them sit around a table and really just talk to people as people instead of as adversaries.
Over time, after you've spent a couple of days together, maybe you've skied together, really allows for a more personal connection. That way people can take a step back a little bit and the aha moment happens.
Our mission is to bring people together to solve some of society's most pressing and difficult problems.
Energy, sustainable agriculture,
Water issues, education reform,
Child obesity,
Shale gas,
or healthcare reform.
International food security.
Really tough issues, vexing issues.
Some of the most intractable, difficult conflicts in policy that exist.
pretty ambitious, but somebody's got to do it.
It's so commonplace now that there's an assumption, of course you'll seek out input from a variety of stakeholders, but that was not the case.
When you have a tough problem, you have to have the right people at the table.
CEOs of companies, consumers, environmentalists, members of Congress and their staff.
Leaders from the NGO sector, leaders from academia.
People on all sides of the issues. There are stakeholders that are very entrenched in their views. There's a lot at stake.
It really all does start with sound data, sound science.
Over the years, Keystone has really maintained its emphasis on science versus politics.
Oftentimes, nobody understands or nobody agrees on the actual facts. And so we will do joint fact-finding processes.
People really trust that.
Then it becomes much easier once there's a common agreement on the facts and the framework to actually go at solutions for the problem.
Consensus building at Keystone is their magic sauce.
Keystone designs the process and manages the process, but in fact, it's the group that comes up with the solution.
You know, one of the issues that we all wrestle with is just a lot of debate and a lot of controversy around what is sustainable agriculture.
In the next 40 years, we're going to have to produce as much food as we have had produced in the last 10,000 years. It's going to put an incredible challenge in front of farmers to meet that goal, but do it while we conserve natural resources.
So we designed the Field to Market initiative to really bring all the key stakeholders together to define what is sustainable agriculture. How do you measure it? How do you promote it?
Field to Market started with just a small table, 6 or 8 people around it talking about the concept.
I remember the first meeting we had, and we were all in our corners. The corn growers didn't really trust the environmentalists. The environmentalists didn't really trust the business community.
It took many days of dialogue, and after a tremendous amount of work and effort, they came up with a really inventive tool called the Field to Market Calculator.
After we listened to each other and we found that point of where our values and science aligned and we all shared this common view, that was an idea that galvanized lots of people.
We knew to solve the problem we actually had to work together, and Keystone was able to build the trust and get the dialogue going so we could actually agree on a way forward. So Field to Market is just one example of the impact we can have when we bring these parties who don't agree together and say, what does the science tell us? Could we come up with a change in the law or a change in policy or just a change in the way an industry operates?
Keystone's recommendations carry a level of credibility that's pretty unique in particularly the world of Washington and with policymakers, because they know behind that there was the right process with the right people who actually were focused on the right issues.
Look at energy legislation in the last 15 years. The Keystone Center has been in the forefront of it.
I know Bob and I would agree that you don't schmooze your way up a mountain. You don't climb a mountain by accident. You focus on your goal, which is the summit. You build a team. You learn how to meet, some cases, implacable challenges with resolution. I think all of us need those experiences where we have to find more in us than we know we have. And Keystone is the crowning example of that.
It may have come out of my experience in mountaineering that I always encourage the staff to dare to fail. It's one thing to want to get safely through a dialogue, but you have to sometimes take chances, and it could go the wrong way. But we've had a lot of successes too, and that's what kept us going.
Almost all of us have been through battles, pitched hard, difficult policy battles over the decades of our career. And so we've all fought for our individual interests. And we all still do that in our day jobs today. But what Keystone allows all of us to do is lift ourselves up above our parochial interests and look at these issues anew from a society point of view.
There's a certain optimism that they bring to the table that allows people to think, well, so no one's been able to get anywhere with this for the last 30 years, but we're going to give it a real shot this time, and we're going to get somewhere.